Welcome back. Now, Martha Wangari Karua, born on September 22nd, 1957 in Kirinyaga County, Kenya, has been a trailblazer in the country's political and legal landscape with a career spanning decades. Now, she served as the Member of Parliament for Gishugu constituency from 1993 all the way up until 2013 and held the position of Minister for Justice Reforms, that is from 2005 to 2009. Renowned for her fierce advocacy for women's rights and democratic reforms, Karua remains a significant figure in the Kenyan politics. In the 2022 general elections, she was Raila Odinga's running mate in the presidential race, but lost to William Ruto's ticket. Now, tonight, in an exclusive interview with TV47's Linda Alela, Martha Karua shares her journey, insights and reflections on her political career and the current state of affairs in Kenya. Take a look.
My name is Linda Alela, and I am delighted to have my guest this evening, NARC Kenya Party leader, Honorable Martha Karua, a champion of justice and rule of law. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much for allowing us to speak to you.
Karibu, it's my pleasure.
Asante sana. You know, the first question that when I share that I'll be talking to you, majority of Kenyans, first of all, appreciate you. And this time round, not in the proverbial or the usual loved and hated in equal measures, but yours is more of love and appreciation as to what it is that you have done in terms of the cause of seeking justice and making a better nation. But they also ask, why is it that you keep fighting? Why is it that you keep staying true to the cause, despite the fact that it might sound as though it does not pay to you individually? Perhaps they could be wrong.
Kenya is my country, my home, and you fight to keep your home and to keep it in order. Whatever happens to this beloved country of ours affects all of us, either directly, indirectly, and if it's not you, your loved one. We have a duty, a civic duty, to fight for our country. And I think the Constitution bestows that duty on everybody to uphold and defend the Constitution. So the things that are happening that are wrong, it is our duty to call out and to apply pressure to have things done in the right way. Yeah.
Do you suppose that we have overlooked the fidelity of just upholding this Constitution?
I think the William Ruto government or regime, as I call it, has all but suspended the Constitution. Why would a regime abduct its citizens, abduct its youth without any reason? At the slightest irritation, it's like Ruto has such a fickle ego. At the slightest irritation, they do not hesitate to abduct, to torture, or to even permanently disappear people. Yeah.
You understand the rule of law, Mheshimiwa, and I appreciate that you bring this up. You have as well just talked about this extensively and even gone ahead to argue that, you know, the people who are conducting these abductions are insiders of the Ruto government. Have you presented this to the legal frameworks that would address the same?
Which are those legal frameworks when the Inspector General of the Police denies any knowledge of what is happening? The police force exists to support, maintain law and order. And if it is somebody outside of the force, they should have arrested him already. It is their business to know. Yes, it may be true it's not people under his command, but being his business to know, he must then be telling us who it is and why so far they have not arrested them, because they should bring such people to face the music under the law. I'm sure it is possible that it's people outside of his command, but it could be some of his officers, but being commanded from elsewhere. And our information is that they are foreigners, and that information was confirmed by the abduction of Besigye, because that abduction was by a joint group of Ugandan military and Kenyan security agencies, because there's no way the Ugandan military can come to operate here without the active support of the agencies, especially the way they removed Besigye through the Malaba border without any immigration procedure. That shows collusion at the highest level. It must be that Ruto and Museveni knew, both of them.
All right.
Yeah.
What does it paint of a picture? And even as you stay true to this course in terms of pushing for justice and addressing some of these concerns, does it not disturb you that it takes a little bit longer, just like they would say, some of these activities and justice itself would take longer, and then that would mean that justice is denied? If we're going to talk about the Gen Z protests that began sometime, we would say June, July actively, and all the way down, the abductions have been happening day in, day out. They are worsening by the day. And even with all this noise, much is not happening. You have requested to represent Kizza Besigye. Unfortunately, that is being frustrated at certain levels, of course, with the basic reasons that they present. What does it make you feel? Does it not weigh down your energy to want to stay to the course?
Not at all.
And do you suppose to achieve
The
anything?
harder the fighter gets, the better I become, the stronger I become. It doesn't affect at all. And I have vowed to be present at Besigye's trial, either as his lawyer, as he desires, his lead lawyer, or as an international observer, an international jurist, come observer. So I was there on the 10th, I'll be there on the 7th, and I'll be there on any other date they set out. And the matter of my license in Uganda, which is a matter of great concern to those who truly support Jumuiya, because I think Museveni's support of Jumuiya and that of Ruto is lip service. Because if they're not following the foundational principles of Jumuiya, then we must take that theirs is cosmetic. Jumuiya was not formed so that leaders can meet and give each other high five. It was formed so that the citizens of the Jumuiya can move freely within the states of Jumuiya, conduct their business. If they are professionals, follow their professions within the Jumuiya. I'm a citizen of the Jumuiya.
Beyond
The legal system, the education we go through is identical. At one time, we even had an East African Court of Appeal. We rely on the same precedent, same law, and there is absolutely no reason why the Law Council in Uganda denied me a license. That matter has been taken up. It is alive once again. I resubmitted. I am supported by the Uganda Law Society, the East African Law Society, the Kenyan Bar. Let us see what they do. But I've said one thing will remain constant. With or without the right to address the court, I will be there present.
If you'd enlighten us a bit, once an individual becomes then a lawyer, are they allowed to take their case to any level of the world without any restrictions, in as much as, of course, there are some small applications or perhaps applications that are vital?
Where the international law allows, yes. Like the Besigye case has also moved to the Jumuiya. The East African Law Society has taken the matter of denial of a license to me by the Uganda Law Council to the Jumuiya. They've also taken up with the states their failure to enact and operationalize certain sections of the East Africa Community Foundational Statute to enable free movement of goods and people and professionals within the community. We can't take certain matters if we feel aggrieved to the African court. We can't go beyond that if we feel there are matters that affect us or our client, even to the International Court of Justice.
And you have yourself
The limit
presented,
is endless.
Yes. You have presented cases at the East African.
In fact, I have an active case relating to the 2022 election. It's pending.
Do you suppose there's any element of progress? So again, it's a typical classic example of what plays out back at home.
No, the East African court does process their cases. If you remember, my 2018 and 2019 appeals were heard very expeditiously.
Right.
But the East African states have been starving the court of money to almost grind them to a halt. But the court is now active once again. That's how come the 2022 case has yet to be heard. That court does process things record time. And what that court does is affirm the rights of the people. Like in my 2018, 2019 cases, they were able to pronounce themselves that I did not get justice in the Kenyan court, and especially up to the Supreme Court. So that was egg on the face of the Supreme Court. Yes. The Supreme Court surreptitiously this year, or rather, shall I say, the AG's office took an advisory, seeking an advisory whether they are bound. And the Supreme Court, in self-preservation, made a funny ruling, and I'm calling it funny without batting an eyelid, because in jurisprudence, it is self-protection, self-preservation, making a ruling that the court, they are not bound and the AG is not bound by the decision. Treaties are a political act. You assenting to the treaty is political. The same Attorney General advised Kenya to assent to the EAC treaty. If they want to get out of it, it's a political act, not through an advisory that defies any known jurisprudence. So the Supreme Court has been a great disappointment to that extent. And the AG has been nothing but mischievous in that regard.
All right. The international community then is observing. They would observe, they would probably want to understand just how the BCJ case continues, and they are looking at how we are conducting ourselves at the level of home locally and even at that East African stage. What do you suppose would be the global ramifications to this? What does it paint Kenya to be legally?
It paints Kenya and Uganda as lawless states that operate gangster style. If a national of Uganda or Kenya goes to the neighboring state and is wanted, there are legal procedures. You cause extradition, you cause arrest to be made by the host country. In this case, if Ugandan wanted BCJ and they knew he was in Kenya, they could have caused his arrest by the Kenyan authorities and then present him to a Kenyan court to authorize him to be removed to Uganda, which is called extradition. But abducting him, because that was not an arrest, it was an abduction. They didn't go before any court of law. They illegally, unlawfully, defying the Kenyan constitution, which stands for due process, defying the Ugandan constitution, which stands for due process, defying international law. They spirited him to Uganda, where they presented him before a military court. There is nothing in the constitution of Uganda that confers criminal jurisdiction on the military over civilians. The military courts are for disciplinary matters affecting military people. So that whole trial, and I believe that BCJ and his colleague Obed Lutare are going to go before the Constitutional Court in Uganda to challenge those proceedings, challenge the manner in which they were removed from Kenya. At the border, the immigration, they were not subjected to any immigration procedure. That's literally trafficking. When you remove a human being and cause them to go to another state without any documentation, that's a classic case of trafficking. And guess who is trafficking in human beings? Is the government of Kenya and that of Uganda.
Well, of
because
course,
when you traffic, there is no trace, there is no paper trail. And trafficked people can even be disappeared permanently. And nobody will ever know because they can deny. Yeah, so it is terrible. Even before the Kenyan eyes, the eyes of the international community, that the state of Kenya, under bad leadership, can be associated with trafficking, with abduction.
All right. So in a minute or so, when we're talking about abductions, and of course we have even Gen Z still hitting the streets, you know, at a time when we're supposed to be making merry because it's a holiday. Unfortunately, people are hitting the streets to call out the government and to call out the persons that are responsible for these cases of abductions, or perhaps just even remind the government that they have a right or they have the mandate to protect the persons or the people that are considered abducted. So in this case, when we get to that space, what is the element of positivity? What are the chances then there's going to be justice for Besigye and as well for these individuals that are being abducted?
I think when your rights are at stake, you fight because it's your very existence that is being challenged. Yeah. That is why our youth are out in the streets. That is why they are giving out meetup. It's life being threatened. And I want to repeat something I said recently to William Ruto directly. You are a father, we've seen your children, and I suppose you were happy to share Christmas and expecting to share New Year with them. The young men you have abducted, I'll say you have abducted them because you have caused their abduction. You are unhappy with what you think has been said about you. They are also children of parents just like you. They need to be out here celebrating, sharing this festive period with their families. You better release them, because this is now beginning to affect every Kenyan. No child, no adult, nobody is safe with you, William Ruto. If these young people are not safe with you, you better release them.
If you're going to speak to the young people, Mheshimiwa, and tell them that you've been here long enough and perhaps fought these kinds of battles, and there's pretty much nothing wrong with proceeding to fight, do you suppose there should be change of tact? Because then sometimes there's some element of intolerance that perhaps does not seem to bear much of fruit in terms of changing a nation.
I want to speak to those in authority more than to the young people. This country doesn't belong to you. It belongs to all of us. Don't behave like you are in your own farm. To Ruto, don't behave like you are in Sugoi. And even Sugoi, the laws of Kenya apply. So you cannot take a hammer and mallet and start pounding those you disagree with, those who are under you. If there is something you disagree with what the young people do, if it is not against the law, the best you can do is block them from your social media account. You can even remove your account the same way President Uhuru did his once. But you cannot take a hammer and mallet to murder our children, because abduction is almost akin to murder. I saw parents crying on the media because they do not know about the safety and well-being of their children. They do not know how they are.
This would amount to allegations. Would you substantiate that?
What?
Saying that, of course, the president is responsible.
He is responsible.
Because he's supposed to take care of the nation, or responsible
Listen,
because actively? Yeah.
He is responsible because we have information, and they have never denied. In fact, it has been confirmed by the Besigye abduction that the abduction squad is selected by Ruto himself from people from his ethnic community. And it's now emerging some of them are his relatives. It is from both the police and the army. It consists also of foreigners. They are not within the command structure of the police. Okay. But I am definitely sure that Mr. Kanja is aware. They may not be under him. It's the business of the police to know. And if Kanja doesn't know, yes, it's not compulsory that he must be their IG. He should walk and go home. If certain things are happening without his knowledge. Everybody swears their individual oath. He swore an oath as IG. Ruto swore an oath. Everybody, including Ruto, are under the Constitution. So you must obey the Constitution and perform your duties as per the Constitution. Ruto himself admitted recently, when he said the abductions will stop, by implication he was saying, and Raila had just asked him for the abductions to stop, and said, yes, they will stop, but ask the parents to also, guide their, I can't remember the exact words, but it's something like, guide your children to behave better. While the parents will be guiding their children to behave better, read the Constitution, Mr. Ruto. Read the Constitution of Kenya. Take time over a glass of water to internalize the Constitution. You have no right whatsoever to cause the abduction of young people merely because they irritate you. Right. You are in a job then you do not deserve. You better have a thick skin. You have actually caused now more young people to sambaza worldwide the very images that may have irritated you and bring up more. And I think they are satirical. Okay. I don't want to say that I would be pleased if it was of me, but I wouldn't take a hammer and mallet, nor would I even think of taking them to court.
Fair enough. Because
there is no offense committed. If you are irritated, block or get out of social media and you'll be a happy person.
Okay, well, of course, it being a developing story, we'll be following up closely to see what happens, and of course, even as Kenyans continue to stay.
But may I challenge the religious community?
Right.
Us, as senior citizens, the parents of the youth being abducted, our professionals, all people of goodwill, we cannot just sit pretty when these abductions continue. I said, if they are regrouping to oppress us, we better regroup to liberate. Let us think of what we can do collectively to force William Ruto and his regime to stop this nonsense of abduction.
They have probably not approached you in any way, and you have been very categorical, Mheshimiwa, to say that you cannot work with the president, the current president, of course, and that is a right that you reserve. But then Kenyans would probably have wished for you to have represented them better, at a level of, where you're serving government. You have resigned at some point in time. You have been approached by President Uhuru Kenyatta at some point in time to serve in his government, and you said no to that. Don't you think you are denying Kenyans the opportunity to get the best of you if you're going to stay out? And many would want to label what it is that you do, which we appreciate, as more of activism than you getting into the government and helping in the formation of these policies and serving your nation in that capacity.
I've offered myself to Kenyans. I even offered myself
for presidency,
in 2022. Yes. So if Kenyans are serious about wanting me or anybody else to serve, you've got your vote, use it. You cannot fail to use your vote and then tell me that I have refused to serve you. And by the way, I serve Kenyans whether in office or out. I've been out of office since 2013 elections. My voice has not faded. I have served Kenyans consistently. I am not a job seeker. I do not offer myself because I'm looking for a job. I seek to serve my country, and I serve with or without a position. So it is not as though Kenyans are missing my service. Only they chose to have different service, which they are now groaning under. And this brings me to the point that let us not just complain. There's something you can do. Next time you have an opportunity to vote, vote for people who can be of use to the country, to you and the country. And it's not about one position. It's about the 6 positions on offer during general elections. vote for a good MCA, vote for good members of parliament, who are three: the constituency MP, the senator, and the women rep. All those are parliamentarians. Right. Vote for a good governor, because MCA and governor work together. And vote for a good president. And when I mean that, I mean vote for good people, value-based leaders, people who will qualify under Chapter 6 of our Constitution. Yeah.
What do I hear, or what is this that I hear when people say that sometimes if you are running for a position and you perhaps became position 2, 3, or 4, you are best considered a leader if you're going to go and join hands with the current regime, or perhaps if it's gubernatorial, for instance, you work with Honorable Anne Waiguru to make Kirinyaga better.
She has made Kirinyaga worse, so why would I join her to make it worse?
Okay.
Let me say this. We must get it in our heads that it is not a must that everybody be in government. So if you try, or in a leadership, in an elected leadership position, if you try and miss, you can also join a majority of Kenyans. We need people who can call out the excesses in government. If we have everybody in government, then who becomes the people's watchdog? Our complaint today is that Parliament has lost its teeth. Instead of being a watchdog, it's now a lapdog. Therefore, there is nobody to tell the government when it's going wrong. And if they do, the voices are feeble, because there are a few parliamentarians who've been consistent and good.
Do you suppose it's going to get worse? I was listening to one of them who's a member of parliament elected on ODM ticket, confidently saying that now that there is the broad-based government, he has no reason to oppose whatsoever some of the bills or some of the matters that are going to be presented in parliament.
That's the problem.
Is it going to get worse?
It's already worse. It can just go down to the worst. Because when ODM, and I had my brother and former Kinara, Raila Odinga, still insisting they are not in government. They're speaking from both sides of the mouth. He said Ruto asked him and he donated some people to him. His people are saying they are now in government, so they're speaking from both sides of the mouth. The truth of the matter is that they're in government unofficially, through the back door, because they should be having a post-election coalition agreement. What would that mean? It would mean that his members of parliament, ODM members of parliament, would vacate the watchdog committee leadership roles. Public investments, public accounts. There are 3 committees each, so those are 6 watchdog committees. Right now, his members, you have just said, quite a number of them are quite happy being in government and they see or hear no wrong. That means Kenyans are missing on anybody watching over things going wrong. That is why the voice of parliament on abductions is on mute. The voice of parliament on Shah Chief, it's hardly audible. It is the public helping themselves, whether it is on stopping Adani, stopping Finance Bill 2024, which is now back through the back door, courtesy of the same parliament. There is a reason why our constitutional design is that there has to be 2 sides, opposition and government, so that there can be oversight.
Majority and minority?
Yeah, so when people understand more opposition and
government,
which in legal terms for today are called minority and majority. You can see even the government, or rather the Ruto regime, getting confused and saying that they will have the leader of official opposition. They forget that the minority leader is that leader of official opposition. And they have a
numbers on ears.
Yeah. So when you say you are bringing the official opposition, it means you are sort of completely lost and do not understand the system we are in. If you do not like a presidential system and you want a prime minister, why don't we go back to the parliamentary system of government. If we want a hybrid, why don't we then go to it? Although I must caution Kenyans never to agree to open the constitution with Ruto at the helm. He's already not respecting the constitution. It would be very dangerous to allow us to touch the constitution with Ruto. You can see he has kept the country without an IBC for almost 3 years now. That is somebody who has no respect for the constitution. We have constituencies and wards that have no representatives for all that period. Yeah. You know, it's totally unconstitutional. And the way the 4 commissioners were fired, because they would still be serving. Totally unconstitutional, you know. So we must be very careful what we do. But I want to say to us, we have a lot of problems. We are the ones who will solve them.
Do you suppose that we concocted poison that is killing us? Because if you were a proponent of multi-partyism, and then it has metamorphosized to this level where we're talking about, formations, now broad-based, more or less like coalitions, and there is the constitution.
We are literally almost in a one-party state.
And that's what I wanted to ask. I mean, should we just say then we are in that single party? And
we are not in single party because there are those of us who are insisting, but that is where William Ruto is quickly taking us. What do you mean by broad-based? You keep on collecting people unofficially. We once had a grand coalition government under Kibaki.
Right.
It was open. Everybody knew that there is a coalition government. There were few of us who were outside of that government, and we were quite vocal and enough. We were able to stop President Kibaki from appointing a Chief Justice without going through competitive bidding when the Constitution came. Yeah. We were able to stop laws from being passed without, proper scrutiny. We were able to do things. But lo and behold, a parliament that boasts of a minority and a majority side is not able to act. We've lost it. And we have to rethink, especially how we elect. We also have to think on how to apply pressure without having to give Ruto the opportunity to mud up people, to execute the way they did with the Gen Z, the way they did with the Azimio demonstrations of 2023. We must not give him an opportunity for mass murder once again.
I am yet to understand.
There are still ways of bringing pressure to bear on him, yes, and of getting him to stop abductions and continuously violating the rights of Kenyans.
It breaks my heart that even with a beautiful constitution and the freedom that comes along with that, we still are talking about an individual, and it comes across as though it's a one-man show. But even before we get to that, you speak of the Right Honourable Raila Odinga as your former kinara. Yeah. What's up with Azimio and the rebranding of NARC Kenya?
We left Azimio.
NARC Party, yes.
And the process is almost complete. All we need is a letter from the Registrar of Political Parties that indeed we have exited, and I'm seeing that coming in January. NARC Kenya is a rebranding, and we'll be announcing our new self in February. One of our colors will be purple.
Okay. And you're donning.
Lilac. Yes, it's, I'm not exactly
donning on that.
Yes, but I have one of the colors purple, and we'll change name. But we'll still be a party that embraces social justice and fights to liberate this country. Liberation is very close to our heart. Yeah, 2 words: the people and liberation. Very close to us.
All right, so this will just be purely NARC Kenya, or there's going to be some incorporation of other individuals?
No, it will be NARC Kenya,
interest?
But being a political party, you're open to anybody to come and join you. Because everybody asks about coalitions and all that. No party is formed for the sole purpose of seeking coalition. Each party is formed to grow, take over leadership through the ballot, so as to apply its policies in the governance of the country. So as a first step, we are going on a mass recruitment drive. as the period gets near, we have an open mind that we look for like-minded. Removing William Ruto, which we must, will not be a walk in the park. We need all people of goodwill coalescing, so we remain open to work with other like-minded. And I think even currently, you sometimes see us standing together with others. Yeah, so there are plenty of people we can work with.
In 30 seconds before we take a short break, do you suppose that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga was a good president that Kenya never had? And how much more over Karua president?
I think we would have made a better team than currently is there. Because as a matter of fact, Raila is easy to work with. I may not agree with everything he does, and I'm obviously not in agreement with him embracing Ruto rather than embrace the Gen Z in June of this year. I'm not happy with him or in agreement with him joining government. And I'm saying, because it is his right to do as he wishes, I'm still calling upon him as a Democrat. Do what the Constitution stipulates. Have a post-election coalition agreement. You are destroying the democracy you have so much fought for by entertaining a come we stay marriage between ODM and the KK regime. Okay. So to that extent, we differ. But I think in terms of working and in terms of the manifesto we had, we would have made a good team. I've worked with Raila before, and I know he's easy to work with. Okay. Even where you disagree across the table, you will be able to resolve. That I'll say of him.
All right, great. Honorable Martha Karua, NARC Kenya Party leader. Allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back, ponder some more on basically the rebranding of NARC Kenya Party, and whether then we're also going to witness the rebranding of Martha Karua, and do we look forward to a presidency that is going to be led by Honorable Martha Karua?
Coming shortly.
All right, coming shortly.
This December, learn about safety precautions to take into consideration this season.
If you can remember, if you drive on a motorcycle often, to make sure that you have a helmet, it's key to decreasing the severity of the accidents.
If you are passing in a bus from Kakamega to Mombasa, in between, just stand up, stretch your legs, and even when you are seated, keep pumping your feet, keep moving your feet to avoid that long stasis of blood in the veins.
Healthier options for you to maintain a balanced lifestyle amid the holiday hustle.
Eating healthy really doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself, but we really just have to factor on how to strike a balance. Portion control and moderation are very key. Let us enjoy the season, and at the same time, let us try to watch our health and our well-being.
Happy holidays.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
And the coming shortly that we talked about is here. Mheshimiwa, once again, Asante Sana for speaking to us. And we go straight to, yes, we were talking about the rebranding of NAT Kenya Party.
Yeah.
What about Martha Karua as an individual? 2027, will she be the person who seeks to unseat William Ruto, or Dr. William Ruto? Or perhaps then...
I would definitely offer myself.
All right.
Yes.
2027.
2027. And I think the more the merrier. But I offer myself with an open mind that we will need at some stage to coalesce all the progressive forces to oust the KK regime, this monster called the KK regime, which is threatening the Republic of Kenya, because they've been deconstructing the Republic. And we've got to move very fast to save our Republic from being decimated by this monster.
When you talk about the more the merrier, most of the people will say that, or at least I have had most individuals speak and pride in the fact that, you know what, someone carried them through the journey, someone trained them through the journey, someone walked with them and mentored them through the journey. They are proteges of so and so. Just how much are you getting into this space of mentoring young politicians coming up, women in particular, now that you're so passionate about this?
The first mentorship and the greatest, and which transcends boundaries, is by what you do, how you carry yourself. And I believe that way we mentor people we have never met.
Yes.
The second tier of mentorship is taking under your wing and working with people who wish to be mentored by you. Right. We haven't had formal mentorship, but I'm sure I've mentored and I continue to mentor people in everyday life and those who work closely with me. But we are considering, and it's going to be a reality, I believe, later the coming year, to have formal sessions where a certain period in the year you invite people who wish to be mentored. It can be online, it can be also physical, but you make it easy for people to join in sessions where you can actually answer their questions and interact in a more intimate way.
Woman Representative Kirinyaga, pretty much vibrant.
Young lady
and vibrant, speaks of you highly at some point and, you know, acknowledges that perhaps you have played a huge role in her growth politically. Have you had an encounter at that close range?
Yeah. And I also salute her because she's coming up very well, very strongly, as a leader of principle, as somebody whose heart is in the right place with the people. Yeah, she's among those I would call good examples. And there are others I have not even met, like Christo Asige. She's a star. She is truly great. There are many I could mention who have remained true to the cause. And I encourage them to continue because by the way they carry themselves, they act, they are also mentoring so many others. Yeah.
Certainly hope that Crystal then gets to see this, as well as the woman representative Kirinyaga, a proponent of the former deputy president. What is your relationship? Have you talked to the deputy?
We don't have a relationship. Let's begin there.
Politically?
I know him, he knows me, even socially. Yeah, but I didn't know him even before. I think the first time we met and shook hands was at the debate. Yeah, so I know of him, he knows of me. We don't know each other basically, but he's a Kenyan, I'm a Kenyan. He's a leader. My doors remain open. You can't say you'll never meet a fellow Kenyan like yourself, and I've said to remove William Ruto will not be a walk in the park. We must be ready to work with all progressive forces. And it doesn't matter where you were yesterday. If today you join the progressive forces, you become one of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why I'm asking that is because the two of you are the heart of the mountain politics.
We definitely will meet because only mountains don't meet. So I remain open. And as leaders within the mountain, we should meet.
And while you are
forward.
Yes, while you are more of a national figure, the mountain is watching. The mountain has questions. After the Limuru 3 session, what would be your message to the mountain today?
Limuru 3 served its purpose. If you remember, the mountain was a closed place. It's like they were in a paddock with gates locked and the keys thrown into the sea. Limuru 3 opened the mountain, and thereafter people regained their voices because there were murmurs, but people were not speaking. Post Limuru 3, people have been speaking. They spoke their hearts out at Limuru 3, and from then on, everything changed. They not only speak, they've been able to walk side by side with the rest of Kenya. Whether it is the Gen Z protests, whatever is happening, you've seen people offering their ideas, opinions, speaking out. So Limuru 3 served its purpose. Yeah.
So the mountain is not a swing vote area. The mountain is not shaken, is not crumbled, is not... They have picked you at some point, I think it was in 2021, to speak on behalf of the mountain. Well, here you are.
That was just a group of leaders. And yes, I was the spokesperson of the Mount Kenya, what were we calling ourselves? Mount Kenya Leadership Forum. Yeah. And we still continue. Yeah, there are many voices speaking for the mountain, and there will always be many voices, and some will be weightier than others. I remain a daughter of the mountain and a daughter of Kenya, and I speak for both in equal measure.
Geshogo in particular, do you ever regret having, stepped down for that, presidential bid? Now that you argue you've been out in the cold, and they say politically you really don't want to be out.
I didn't say the cold.
Okay. Oh, the cold is...
It is you who is feeling the cold. Look at me and tell me whether I look like
you don't look like you're in the cold at all.
Cold. Majority of Kenyans are not sitting in leadership positions, elected. You can't say they're in the cold. For me, leadership is not a life and death matter. I offer a service. If it's not appreciated, I serve within my space. And if you look at it, I'm happy with what I do, but I'm not happy with how my country is going. After representing Geshogo for 20 consecutive years, I thought it was the right time to terminate my being a member of parliament. I left parliament never intending to return to it. So you can't talk about me missing. I thank the Geshogo people for giving me those 4 consecutive terms, but I don't need to ever be a member of parliament again in this life. But I can be a leader in other spaces. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we chart the way forward as a people, as a country. Reality is that there are external forces that are watching. They are constantly, perhaps running the activities in the nation. You are on record as well to have spoken of just how disrespectful and distasteful it can be to just see how they get into this space. And I think this then during, again, the 2007, 2008 era, where it wasn't so rosy for the country. What do you make of this infiltration, if at all not, working together, of African nations and Kenya in particular, and the bigger brothers?
I think what we have to watch out as citizens is the regrouping of an ethical leadership in Africa, of rogue leaders. We should watch very closely the bonding of the rogue regime of William Ruto and the rogue regime of Yoweri Museveni. And I think Ruto is an apprentice under Museveni, eager to graduate as a dictator. We in Kenya must thwart the graduation of William Ruto into a dictator. We must stop this country from falling to that.
So we are our own enemies beyond the bigger
We
brothers.
are our own saviors. I will not call us enemies.
All right, fair enough.
We are our own saviors. Let us join hands.
Yes.
And to that extent, I'm very happy because the religious groups are regaining their voice. They've come out very strongly. And I'm telling them, dear religious leaders, don't watch on the sidelines as people get abducted. I know you have spoken, but it's not enough. Louder. And perhaps it's time to join with your congregation, because we are the congregation. Seek out the rest of the religious leaders. Let's seek out our Muslim brothers. Let's seek every religion in Kenya, the Hindus, and together, as Kenyans, religious leaders and congregants, we tell William Ruto no. And we force him to change course. The way the Gen Z, in June this year, forced him to change course to the extent that he had to sack his cabinet, although he returned just a similar or worse cabinet through the back door. But it just shows that when we exercise our sovereignty together, we win. We still can exercise our sovereignty to ground him or even force him to exit. It is time. We seriously thought about it. Let us regroup and let this happen. We cannot lose our country to an individual or to a group, a cartel, whether political or otherwise, that is running our country down. The health service, completely destroyed. Access to health has been destroyed by SHA chief. If NHIF was not running optimally, we didn't have to remove it. We just needed to improve the governance. Our education system ran down. Respect for people's rights and their property gone. Demolitions all the time. And yes, there were demolitions before, but that doesn't make them right. When people have been ravaged by the vagaries of the weather, like happened during the rains, you then come and demolish what was left and exceed the riverine and start demolishing for people with titles, some of whom have built with their pensions, leaving them destitute. And I don't know why they love to do it around festivities, leaving so many in the cold. We need to rebuild our country on the foundation of our Constitution and not see it decimated by people who have no respect for the Constitution.
I will try and play the devil's advocate in this matter. When you argue that perhaps, well, the vaccine conversation is something that is not making many Kenyans happy, and then we argue that money can be channeled towards advancing the health sector. Yet the same regime is trying according to what they say, according to their manifesto, according to their promises to the people of Kenya, they are trying to advance the health sector by introducing the Shiv-Shah conversation.
And equipment.
And, well, of course, as they argue. And they say you cannot do the same thing and expect different results. Perhaps that's why they term it necessary to make these adjustments from NHIF to Shiv-Shah. Would it not be contradicting for us to point a finger at them even before perhaps the train has left the station?
We've already experienced for the last 3 months the dysfunctionality of the Shiv-Shah, which we now know that the money is going to escrow accounts. That clearly shows an intention to deprive Kenyans of their money. That money should be going to where it is utilized, where people can have their claims paid real time, where hospitals do not have to scream themselves hoarse that they're not being paid.
Right.
Today, no hospital will treat you. Even if they admit you, you cannot be taken to theater even if you have a Shiv-Shah card until the money comes. It means people who need emergency treatment are in danger of even dying before they get that emergency treatment. So you cannot replace the bad with the worst. That's all that we are saying.
Right.
And in the education system, the new funding model has been thrown out by the court.
Yeah.
Let the Ruto regime not pretend that there is a crisis. When it's thrown out, we go back to the status quo before. And the status quo ante is the old funding model which was working.
Okay.
Continue with that while you rectify what the court pointed out. Look, young people of age are not being issued with IDs. And a monetary value has been placed on IDs. It's as though it's a criminal offense to become of the age of majority. Ruto must remove that charge of accessing an ID card. It's not a crime to be Kenyan and also to be 18. Let those who get 18 get their cards free of charge, just as before. Let there be continuous voters registration, and that's why we must have an IBC before March of this year.
Okay.
They will argue that there are court cases. The court can plan its diary. If there is a case holding the nation on a vital area, nothing stops the courts from hearing the case day to day. The way presidential election cases had 14 days and you're done.
Yeah.
So it is possible within January. If the judiciary thinks and acts on behalf of the people of Kenya who have donated power to it, they must prioritize disposing of with the IEBC-related cases to free Kenya to have an IEBC before March. We must have continuous registration of voters.
Well,
Ruto must also release IDs. They claim there is, but there isn't. That you remain consistent, because then it is those credentials that would aid you at the AU. So he needs to look over his shoulder, address the issues the Gen Zs are raising.
Okay.
And I'm glad that he has come out strongly on abductions. But the question is, if you continue to associate with those abducting Kenyans, unless if your voice becomes a critical voice they heed so that people can see the results, then you will remain associated with the ills. In this age of information, you do not know, you do not know exactly who sees and who doesn't see.
Yeah.
You must take it that it's out there in the marketplace, and that's why I'm saying I'm glad that the Right Honorable Raila has spoken strongly about abduction, and I would urge him to speak strongly, not just about abduction, but the other issues.
Yeah.
He's still holding on to Adani, though he's discredited, but I'm saying, as a seasoned politician, it's up to him to check the issues that may tarnish his reputation on social media, which then gets on to the other side. Doing well. And I'm going to continue doing book tours within the country.
Yeah.
I launched in Malindi. I also went to Kirinyaga and in my home invited a large cross-section and we shared. And I'll be doing that with the NAK Kenya party when we open. And I'll go to many other centers in Kenya. I'm going to push it because it's my book. The marketing is up to me and my team.
What is this one thing that you want Kenyans to pick from it? The world, the global stage to actually pick from this book? Because there are some of us who are readers, some are not so good readers, but at least it's something that they would wish to pick.
Will not tell you what you will pick,
Go
but
ahead.
you will meet the real me,
Okay.
the authentic me.
Right.
Yeah. And there are things you might like, there are others which might not be for you. We share our stories to affirm those who have gone through similar issues, to affirm those who are in the same place. And even when you reveal your vulnerabilities, there are some also who will avoid walking that
Same
direction.
path, yeah.
So we grow by sharing. I've also grown by sharing, by learning. As Africans, we used to do it through oral tradition. All those stories my grandmother told me, what I saw her do. So this is allowing me to share me with and my surrounding, because it's not me alone, it's me and my surroundings, to more people. And I hope that in some small way, it can be a blessing to someone.
And I also understand just how much of a blessing it is to you. So as you read it, as you smile, as you sometimes frown at perhaps what you would consider mistakes that you did, what would you tell you at 25, your 25-year-old version today?
I think I'll just repeat the words of Lupita Nyong'o, that your dreams are valid.
Right.
Keep to what you want to do and be true to yourself. That's what I would add.
Asante sana.
And even as Kenyans, let us be true to ourselves. We want good governance. Elect leaders who will lead you there. Let's be authentic.
The role of the electorate in all this activity of making sure that we have a better nation. Asante sana.
And to William Ruto, think of the other parents, not just about yourself. Free those young people, young men and women. Let them go back to their parents. Then you might have a better time with your family, with your conscience free.
All right. Perhaps I should add you 30 more seconds to just tell the people of Kenya something, even as we stay true to this course.
I'll say this. Let 2025 be the year that we take back our country, the year that we work hard to put things right. And during this festive season, and knowing that there are so many who cannot even afford to have a meal and who may not have shelter, let us share. Even if you just share with one person next to you, you have moved towards helping another human being.
NAK Kenya Party Leader, Honorable Martha Karua, asante sana.
Asante sana.
Once again, it's a great honor speaking to TV47, and we're always looking forward to see you on that mission of changing.
My pleasure to meet you, because I was also meeting you on the screen.
Asante sana. This is like, let me tell you, for every presenter, for myself, this perhaps is a dream come true. You long and you look forward to have an engagement to those ones that are considered pace setters, iron ladies, and those ones that stay true to the cause of justice. It is not a mean fate. Asante sana.
Thank you, and let me give you a New Year hug.
Happy New Year to you, Mheshimiwa. Thank you so much, and God bless.
You too.
Asante sana.
That is TV47's Linda Alela with Martha Karua. Quite an insight into her life, of course, her future political aspirations, her views, her opinions, and much more. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad that you actually enjoyed that. Lots of feedback coming in. We appreciate you as always. And that brings us to the end of tonight's live broadcast. Thank you for keeping us company right here on Weekend Edition this Sunday. My name is Shiksha Arora. Once again, if you joined us, well, we appreciate you as always. Hope you have a splendid rest of your Sunday night. A big shout out to my amazing camera woman. Her name is Winnie Chebet, as well as Mr. Director Simon Kirinyaga. Thank you for always doing an incredible job right here on TV47. We must appreciate our in-house talent, our in-house staff. And yes, Shiksha Arora signing out, not forgetting our sign language interpreter tonight, the beautiful lady in yellow. Her name is Rhoda Nyamai. Good night. I'll see you next week, Friday, Tribe 47. Make sure you make a date and have a splendid week ahead.